Well, 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 if it isn't that time of year again. This is exciting. I have no intro. We're just gonna get started. So I have all of the books that I read written out here. I think I read 56 books, 56. That is the number. And we're just gonna kind of do this similar to how we did it last year. If you remember last year's video, I'll put it like up here somewhere or something. So we're going to kind of do this like a tier list. I'm not gonna have a physical tier list, but there are tiers. Let it be known there are tiers. We are starting from my favorite book of 2025, the best book I feel that I read in 2025. And we're going to proceed to descend into madness like we did before, all the way down to the honestly handful of books that I hated. Yup, yup. There's at least 10. There's actually at least 10 books that I think were bad. So anyways, let's get into it. So the first category I have is no, I'm not taking any feedback. These are books I will not take any feedback on. They are great. And if you disagree, I don't care. I don't care. You're wrong. How does it feel to be wrong? Okay, we're gonna get started. My first book is The Bee Sting. No one's surprised. No one is surprised that The Bee Sting is my favorite book of 2025. Am I going to tell you what The Bee Sting is about? Let's see how long it takes until I stop giving you synopsis. Let's see how long it's going to take. So, The Bee Sting is about a family, and they're going through a hard time. And we get POVs of every single member of the family, all four members of the family, as they are dealing with the ups and downs of all of the things going on in their personal lives, whilst also trying to maintain their family structure. Alongside everything happening in this book is also a conversation about climate change. And that's like a really, really big factor in this book is about climate change and the way that humans are kind of navigating um, existing on Earth and still being very human, whilst also participating in the Earth dying. This book is absolutely brilliant. It's just written so well. Something that stands out to me so much after being a year out of reading this book is the way that the mother, like how her sections are written. Like it's so good. There's no punctuation in her sections at all. And you can tell that she's having such a hard time because everything just kind of feels like it's her chapters just almost not necessarily a stream of consciousness, but it feels like it's just one thought after another, and there's no real breaks. Like there's something very panicked about her chapters, and there's something about that I'm just like to be able to showcase that not only in just like the way in which she's like speaking in those chapters, but even the way that the chapters are formatted. Brilliant. Brilliant. I don't know. It's brilliant. Those are my thoughts on The Bee Sting. The next book I have is Almond. This was hard to, was it hard? When I was obviously making this list, I wasn't sure if I really wanted to put Almond this high up, but this was another book that I read quite early in 2025, and it still like sticks with me. Like I'm still thinking about this book. I think about it in comparison to like other media that I've consumed. So it still like resonates with me so much. And Almond is a book about this young boy who essentially doesn't feel certain emotions in that he experiences a very like tragic event, and he doesn't really respond to it in the way that people feel like he should, like the people around him feel like he should, and everyone kind of just views him as a monster. And the book is pretty much having a discussion as to what makes us human, and is what makes someone not be considered human or be considered a monster. How much of it is them actually being monstrous, and how much of that is just us as like the outsiders, as other humans existing, kind of putting that on the person because they exist in a way that we don't understand. On the outside, as I'm reading it, I'm like, there's something so human about him. Like, even though he's not able to show like certain like basic emotions, if you will, there's still just something so obviously like human about him. And I'm like, this child isn't a monster. Like, there's no way in which I can view this and assume this child is a monster, but I can also see how the unknown feels scary, and we connect those two as like scary, monstrous. Like, I understand that. But the book is so good, and the ending almost took me out, and I almost cried from reading it. It was so good. The next book on my list is horror movie. Horror movie. This is going to stress me out. Horror movie is a book about this man who was kind of like I guess starring role, really starring role in this movie that never really saw the light of day in its like totality. And there's a lot of like spooky ooky stuff that has happened around this film, and it has somewhat of like a cult following in spite of it never really existing in, like I said, in totality, right? And he is supposed to be coming back to like film the reboot, if you will, of this movie, but everyone else that starred in the movie is dead. um and this is like a psychological horror, and I'm not really explaining this well, and I don't really think you should know that much information if you're going into it. But this book still haunts me to this day. I actually don't think that, and I've read some. I'm scared easily. We need to get that out of the way. There are books that I've read that I find to be spooky, and I've read them and I've been spooked for maybe like a week, 2 weeks tops. I might have a nightmare. I don't know. I don't know. This is how I exist. I might have a nightmare. However, this book scares the shit out of me. Like, I don't even I'm sure this isn't gonna be that spooky ooky to most people, but there's something about this book that's literally scares the shit out of me. There isn't necessarily like scary thing after scary thing after scary thing. Like, there's not a bunch of gore explained in like like there's none of that. It's literally just me being in my own head, because the psychological of it all. It's me being in my own head convincing myself that this is horrific. That all of this is so scary and I should be terrified. Um and in my review for this book, like on Goodreads, I said that I never read anything like this. And I think I said that I never want to read anything like this again, and then gave it 5 stars. And like that's how I'm gonna explain that to you. And if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. But that's it. That's it. And the book was so real. The next book on my list, one day everyone will have always been against this. This is a very like quick turn. This is a memoir. I don't fully know how to explain this to you, but also if you're watching a book video, you probably literally know the premise of this book. And I say premise loosely because it's a memoir. Like, you already know, I guess, the talking points on this book. Um, I think that this book is so well written, and there's so much heart in it. And the thing that I love the most, I'd say, about this is it really hammers home the idea that everything is connected, and that nothing happening to any group of people or even any like individual person is not connected to something else. Like, the only reason why this one thing, or not the only reason, but this one thing exists, and so does this other thing exist. I'm not explaining that well, but you get it. um, Nobody's oppression is like exists in a vacuum. Like, what is happening to Palestinians isn't surprising, because there's been signs in a plethora of other spaces that, of course, this is where we would end up going as a society, just based on the way that the powers that be have oppressed other people throughout history. Like, it's not even surprising that this is what's gone on. Um, which, at least in my opinion, makes it so strange that we would ever try to act like, and I guess that's like the purpose of this, right? Like one day we're all going to be like, oh my God, how did we let that happen? But it's just like we've let this happen so many other times before. Like it's not surprising that, of course, we would let this happen again. But at what point in time do we stop letting this happen? Like at what point in time do we make the decision that this isn't okay and we're not going to constantly witness people being harmed and brutalized and oppressed over and over and over again? And at what point will we realize that their oppression is just like, eventually, if you want to, if this is the only way you can give a shit about anything, that eventually it'll be you. Like everyone thinks that they're not going to have a moment in which it's going to happen to them, but like it will because all of these things exist almost in a circle and not in a vacuum. Like none of these situations are individual. I think if you haven't read that memoir, then you should, because it's very, very good. I wouldn't say that it replaces reading books from Palestinians, even though it does touch a lot on what's happening in Palestine. But I do still think that it is a really good read regardless. And I think it's still a very important read, even if it's not coming directly from the people that are being oppressed, but most definitely still listen to the people that are being oppressed. And speaking of oppression, the reformatory. As you can see, what I like to read is depression, because literally I haven't listed a book that's fun. The Reformatory is a book about this young boy who ends up getting put into a reformatory for kicking a white boy. It's a little black boy that gets put into a reformatory for kicking a white boy. It's his experience in that reformatory. This book is talking about how children are incarcerated, how we in general treat people that are incarcerated, how we are complacent in the incarceration of children, like just all of those things. And this book is just, it's so devastating. It's so haunting. It's so sad. I definitely like cried reading this. And I don't even think I have like any other like where I was like sitting with it for a while, but I feel like I couldn't even do it for that long because it was a lot. Just because all of that is just it's so real to think about incarceration and slave labor and how children are completely failed by the system and like how many of us just allow it to happen. Um, but yeah, it's literally such a well-written book, even though it was depressing and I didn't necessarily have a great time reading it, but it was very, very good. And next book, because we're not moving out of being depressed, The Buffalo Hunter. This book, again, another book that is absolutely brilliant. I read this a little bit after seeing Sinners, because I was on a vampire kick, so it felt like it made sense. I can't explain to you how I feel about Stephen Graham Jones. I feel like it's been 2 years in a row now that I've had a Stephen Graham Jones book be in my top 10. And there's just something about his writing that just sits right with my spirit. One thing that I really, really loved about it is it doesn't at all like hold your hand like through the process of reading it. Stephen Graham Jones is using uh words, language, terminology of the specific indigenous group that he's like the main character is from. And this book literally had me on Google, it had me on Reddit. Why does a book have me on Reddit? It's so unserious. Why does a book have me on Reddit? And it's because this book is not holding my hand and I had to do research alongside of this fucking book. And there's something about that that I appreciate so much because I've read books where authors are kind of like spoon feeding you everything. And it's just like, I like that Stephen Graham Jones is believing that his reader is intelligent enough to do some work. To actually go in and not just let the experience of reading this book be the only experience. And on top of all of that, just the conversation around colonization is just brilliant. Brilliant as it always is. If I have to pull up another sad book, I'm gonna scream. Well, actually, This is the last one. The Emperor of Gladness. So the Emperor of Gladness is about this boy who is about to commit suicide, and this elderly woman spots him getting ready to commit suicide because he like practically in her backyard getting ready to do this shit because she got like a river or something, I think, like right outside her, right like within her area. And she spots him and she's like, no, don't do that. Get down from there, knock it off. And he ends up building a friendship with her. Apart from that, he also kind of reconnects with his cousin, and he ends up getting a job in like the same. Essentially, it's like Boston Market. He ends up like getting a job at Boston Market. When he's working there, he finds community. So he finds community with the people that he's working with. He finds community with this elderly woman who had, I believe, like fled from war and is still having a lot of like war flashbacks, if you will. And he's like helping her through that. He's helping his cousin through other personal things. He's uh just building all of this community, and it's so sad. It's just so sad. But it's Ocean Vuong, so of course the prose are absolutely beautiful. There are so many lines in that book that are so beautiful and so brilliant, and there's just so much care just put into that book. And it was so devastating and so sad, as like everything that I read and like is always devastating and sad. And just brilliant. I know that a lot of people have a lot of, I guess, like takes on Ocean Vuong's work, but I just, again, he's another author where I'm just like, I get it. I get it. The books are written for me. I get it. So I absolutely loved it. The next book, and finally one that's not sad. Finally one that is not sad. The Prospects. The Prospects is a romance book. Whoa, a romance in my top 10. Crazy. Never thought I'd see the day. The Prospects is about this trans man who is a baseball player, and he had a thing for this other man that also a baseball player, and they had like a thing when they were younger, like before he officially transitioned, and now that he's like post transition, they end up on the same like little league team, I think. Ooh, child, does memory ever serve? They end up on the same little league team. They end up like, bonding and falling in love and such. This book was so fun and so cute, and I enjoyed it so much. And I must add, the sex scenes in this, actually, yeah, absolutely, actually. There is a like author's note in the beginning of the book if you are a queer person that might feel some type of way about like the word choice used in some of the sex scenes. I guess be wary of that. Depending on how you feel about your own gender, maybe feel a little, tread lightly, if you will. But for me, yeah, 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 loved it and ate it up, no pun intended. So next, A Psalm for the Wild Build. I feel like every book on this list, in my top 10, I should say, are a bunch of books where I'm like, oh, this author gets me. Becky Chambers gets it. This book brings me so much joy. This is a book about a monk who lives in a world that I could only say is the dream society, is literally is the epitome of the society I would like to reside in. It is the epitome of the society I would like to reside in. So how does it feel to be living my dream? This monk decides that they're completely over selling tea. Is that what they do? Good lord. They decide that they don't want to be doing the job that they were doing, and they're like, I'm gonna go out into the wild. Okay, okay, sure. They decide to go out into the wild, and they meet this robot. The monk and the robot decide that they're gonna have like a little adventure, and they interact with each other, and it's cute, and they build like this whole friendship, and it's just a good time. It's really just a good time. And Becky Chambers is really just describing a world that we should all long to live in. And I don't know what else to say to you. It's so good. And I feel like there are people that have read this book and given it 3 stars, and I need you to understand you are wrong. I need you to understand you do not see the vision, you do not get it. Like, you are wrong. And the last book on my top 10, and this is a little unserious of me, and maybe you can gauge out how my reading has gone. The last book in this section is The Night Circus. And let me explain to you, not the synopsis, because now I'm over explaining the synopsis. Let me explain to you why this is so wildly unserious. I have read The Night Circus every single year for the past 4 years. Every single year for the past 4 years. And I purposefully took The Night Circus off of my list of books when I read 100 books in 2024. I purposefully didn't include that in my like wrap up situation because it felt unserious, it felt fraudulent, it felt fake. Because why would I do that? Because I know that this is one of my favorite books, because why else would I keep fucking reading it? So there's no need for me to have it here. And even me putting it on my top 10 feels unserious because it should probably be higher, but it felt like to put it higher felt a little too like, well, duh. So that's the reason why it's at the bottom of this list. But it is the literally the only book I've ever read that many times. And I keep doing it. And the last time that I read it, this past December, I was like, "Ooh, this is probably gonna be my last year reading it. I don't really think I'm gonna be into it like that anymore." And then I read it and I said, "Wow, wow! I've never felt happier. I've never felt more myself than when I'm reading The Night Circus." What? What? This book is arguably not even that good. Like, the book arguably isn't even like that good, but I keep reading it over and over and over again. So is The Night Circus number 10? Yes. Is it technically number 1? Also yes. Don't ask no more questions. Let's move on to the next category. Let's move on to the next category. So this section, the next 10 books in this section, um Girl, I Love You Bad. Let me explain. These are the books that I still really, 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 really liked, but we can't quite put in like my top books. These are books that when I was making this list, I said, oh, no, I do love this book. I love this book bad, even. Like, girl, I love you bad for real. So let's get into it. Heaven is about these 2 kids that are getting bullied, like badly bullied. Oh my God. Like badly bullied to the point where I'm like, ooh, you might have to call the police. Like these children need to be in jail. Like, whoa. But they essentially come together and like find like somewhat of like a heaven in each other. This book is so hard for me to like really explain to you like what I got out of this. And I at one point had like filmed a like vlog and realized I don't like vlogging. I had filmed a vlog where I was like talking about this book, and I was like, oh, I think this book is like catered to like adults, even though like the main characters are children. And then I checked it and it literally says it's YA. And I said, oh, I can't actually justify why this book is written the way it is, because it's kind of insane. I there's like thoughts I have, and I don't know if I should say them out loud, but there's like certain moments in the book that I'm just like, I don't really think this should be here. However, there is something about the way that this book is written still, and the way that it is talking about how like shit life can be, that just resonated with me. I don't know, maybe it was the time that I was reading it. I was kind of down bad. I think I read this in like April or March maybe. And I was unemployed as shit, and I was really going through it. So like maybe that's why. And maybe if I read it now, I would be like, ooh, the book is actually extremely hard to read because you're just constantly reading these children getting their shit rocked over and over and over and over and over again, and just being like, damn, your life suck real bad. Like, this is actually so tragic and so sad. But again, there's just something about the way that it's written. That sounds crazy. There's something about the way that the book is written, that I still am just like, yeah, yeah. I do think it's really great. And it did also make me like tear up because it is quite sad. So the next book on the list is The Summer Hikaru Died, Volume 6. I'm still reading this. Who's surprised? Right, nobody. I'm still reading this, and I think that volume 6 is probably my favorite volume. We're, like, really getting into, like, the thick of the story. I can't really explain anything about the story to you because 'cause I'm on volume 6, right? But, we're really getting into, like, the thick of it. It's so good. It's so good to the point that, like, early on, there's, like, a quote in the book. The quote was so devastating to me, and I was really, like, sitting there crying. I was like, "I'm on page 10." Like, this is early on in this volume that, like, this line is said, and it was so devastating to me. It was so incredibly devastating to me. I'm like, "I'm really sitting here crying already." Like, I just cracked open the book. I just cracked open the book. So it just keeps getting better and better. If you haven't read this, like, I don't know. I don't know what you're doing. Death Note, but the complete edition, not a specific volume, not like the summer Hikaru died. I like literally read the big old thick brick that is the complete edition of Death Note. And I also finished the anime last year too. But anyways, so Death Note, if you for some reason don't know, is about this boy who stumbles upon a death note, which is just a notebook that allows you to kill people. And he picks it up and then decides that he's going to be a mass murderer. But he don't think he's a mass murderer. He thinks he's God, which, as a former Christian, maybe he's right. I don't know. Anyways, Death Note is actually so good. And I understand why there's so much like love for the series, but also like so many jokes about this because it is so good and a little unserious. But if you really like walk with it for real, like really think of everything going on in it, which I'm not going to discuss any of that here because the coffee's not finished. But if you really want to think about everything that this book is saying about the idea of how far you can go when you originally have the desire to do good and how thin the line is between good and evil, then you really have something brilliant. Like, if you really track it as that and not just like the unseriousness of this young boy playing the long game to kill everybody so he can become God, it's like, oh, yeah, no, this is a really good book actually, and this has a really good premise, and the story is actually kind of brilliant. But yeah, Death Note is great, and the anime was great too. The anime, I'd argue I might have liked at least the ending of the anime more than the actual manga. But yeah, both absolutely brilliant. Next book we have is Stag Dance. I originally didn't know if I was going to put this high because I kind of forgot that I read it. But every single time I'm reminded that I read it, I'm like, oh no, I loved this actually. Stag Dance is actually just like a short story collection, and all of the stories are so good. All of them are so good. Um, they deal with sexuality, with gender identity, because like of course they do. The author is a trans woman, so like obviously. And I say obviously loosely, but it's just like what are you to discuss other than your life experience, you know? But anyways, just like all of the stories are so good. And I remember reading Detransition Baby by the same author and not knowing how I felt about it. And now, so far out of reading it, because I think I might have read that 2 or 3 years ago, and I'm like, oh no, I didn't know how to rate this before, but I actually think this book is brilliant. And I think if I really think about what Tori Peters is saying in this book, I would be able to really grasp like why it exists and why it exists in the way that it does. And I think going into Stag Dance, already kind of getting there with their last book, I was able to be like, oh no, I get it. Like, I understand what's happening here. And I just think the book is so good. And every single time I think about it, I'm just like, yup, that book was so good. Next, we have the second book in the Monk and Robot series. Um, I don't really have much to say about this one. It was a very good second book. There's just really not much to say. The only thing that is like, I guess, different really about this book than the first one is just the monk and robot are on more of like an adventure in the first one, and then the second one they come back to the monk's like hometown, if you will, and they just spend time with the monk's people. And it's really cute and fun. The thing that is one of like my favorite moments in the book is when the monk tries to explain their like family setup, and they're talking about how their so essentially their family is poly. So they're like, oh, like here is my mom's boyfriend's husband's this. And it's just like, hello. And to try to keep up is crazy. But also, again, how does it feel to be living my dream? And that's all I have to say about that. The next book is The King of Ashes. When I first read this, and you can even read my review on this book, and you can tell that I remember when you was conflicted, worked at Kendrick. You could tell that I was conflicted about this book. I was expecting that this book would end in a different way than it did. I was expecting to go into this book and be like, oh yeah, like it's going to end in a way that I found satisfying. When the more I thought about it, I was like, oh no, it actually makes so much sense that this wouldn't, because the point of it is that the cycle continues. Because we've learned nothing. So of course the cycle continues. And as depressing as it is for that to be the case, like I said, it just makes complete sense. And I feel like me being unsatisfied was a part of the point. Not me personally necessarily, but like it being essentially an unsatisfying ending, but an inevitable one. It's like, yeah. Actually, it almost makes it satisfying that you're like, of course the inevitable happened. I explained nothing of this book to you. So this book is about this man who is down bad. He needs therapy. He really needs therapy, and he's doing everything but. He's doing everything but. And he ends up getting caught up in some like gang nonsense because his little brother is acting a fool. Because he needs therapy too. Because he needs therapy too. All them need therapy. So his brother ends up getting them caught up in some like fuck shit, and he ends up like having to clean up the mess. And he starts off with like good intentions, right? Of being like, oh, I'm just gonna get you out of this, like however much money it's gonna take, like I'm a big shot, like I got the cash, however much money it takes, like whatever the case may be, like I'm gonna just get you out of it, and like you just not gonna do no fuck shit like this ever again. We gonna move on. It doesn't work out like that, because if it did, the book would have been 20 pages. So it doesn't work out like that in the slightest. And the main character, the older brother, he ends up constantly having to try to finesse his way through this gang in order to get them out of this situation and to not have anyone else in their family or even anybody in the vicinity that they know end up being harmed by this gang. So it ends in a way that, like I said, it felt inevitable, but it was still very, very upsetting that it ended the way that it did. But this book was like written so well, and I've read, I think, all of S.A. Cosby's books. I don't think that there is one I haven't read, actually. My favorite one at the time when I was like before I read this one was what is it called? Razor Blade Tears. I think it's over there. Um and I have to say that, like, no, this is his big one, actually. This is his big one. This one is so good. It's so good. And the more that I sit with it, the honestly, the better that it gets. And I'm sure if I reread some of like the things that I highlighted, I'd be like, ooh, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. When it all comes back to the forefront of my memory, yeah, brilliant. Our Vicious Descent. Um, I'm gonna have to dish out an apology. The author of this book, Haley, come to the front. I'm so sorry, girl. I was so mean to your first book. I really was. I was so mean to your first book, and that wasn't right of me. That wasn't right of me, because the second book, so good. And I am so glad that I decided to continue in the duology and not just read the first one and just like write it off. That I was just like, no, I'm gonna actually still read it. And I bought it in hardcover, and paid full price for it. So it's like, I Yeah, and I regret none of it actually. I regret none of it because this book was so good to the point where I think I was maybe like 200 pages in, so I'm roughly about halfway through the book, and I'm kind of tired of like physically reading with my eyeballs. So, I decide to go and get the book on audio just so I can keep reading it. Huh? I didn't want to put it down that bad that I literally got it on audio so I could still be reading the book. That's how good it is. That's how good this book was. I had such a good time with this book. I thought it was written so well. I thought that the story was so heartbreaking. The ending had me crying. The ending had me crying. And oh my God, I was so upset. The ending upset me so bad. So bad. I was like, no, she's not going to do that. I was like, she's not going to do that. She's not going to do it. And I'm over here literally feeling the 5 stages of grief. Why am I feeling the 5 stages of grief reading this book? Reading this YA romance. Why am I doing this? But this book was so good. This book is about these two girls that are in love with each other. And one of them is a vampire, and the other one is a vampire hunter, or at least her like family is of vampire hunters. And we're just like following their story. I can't give too much away because then I'm gonna like be spoiling it, but just understand that like it takes place in New York in like the 1920s and whatever else. And it's just it was so sad. I'm like, of course the lesbian story is tragic. Of course it is. I love a tragic queer story. So we're gonna go on to the 18th book, Audra and Basher Just Friends. I don't know if I'm saying her name right. um but anyways, it's a little YA romance because apparently I was on my little YA romance kick. This book is a lot. It's still quite sad actually, but it's meant to be a little bit happier. But it is Tia Williams, I believe. So like it's always gonna be a little tragic. This is actually the second book in the like 7 Days of June. I can't really call it a series. I guess duology. I doubt there's going to be like another book. I don't know who else would be a part of it. But anyways, it's about these two kids who end up becoming friends because one of them was supposed to have gone away to live with their father like for the summer, and like every single year they go and live with their father, and they had like an internship and like a whole thing like lined up. All of those plans end up getting canceled because their dad ends up his wife ends up being pregnant or had just had a baby or something, and he's just like, yeah, actually sorry, you can't come. Huh? All of the adults involved in this book, unserious and are all going to hell. Are all going to hell. Her mama going to hell. Her daddy going to hell. Her stepdaddy going to hell. The boy's parents going to hell, especially his dad. Ooh, ooh, his dad. Don't let me in a room with that man. Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. He would be done for. He'd be done for. And horrible for no good reason. But the kids cute and sweet. The kids cute and sweet and really just trying their best. And they were so sweet to each other. And it just like warmed my heart. It was so cute. Every single moment they had together was so good. But I will say pretty much everyone on the outside, um, really the friends included, even their friends, unserious, a little unserious and unnecessary actually. The only thing that really mattered was like the romance between the two of them, and that's the only reason why it's up this high, just purely because I feel like their romance was so strong that it can carry the weight of the entire book. The next book I have also another little YA romance, and that's Love Radio. I'm actually not going to tell you what Love Radio is about, and not because I don't want to, but because I feel like my synopsis wouldn't make any sense. And I don't know how to explain that to you either. But anyways, I really enjoyed this book. I thought it was very sweet. Again, it kind of like leans into what I was saying about the last book, where the relationship between the two kids is just like very, very sweet and very heartwarming to me. The adults involved in this book though are kind. I did enjoyed all the other like side characters and everything. Felt like everyone was very sweet and wholesome in this book. Actually kind of surprised I put this high. But also like, yeah, sure, sure. Okay, and the last book in this section is This Thing Between Us. This Thing Between Us is a horror book about this man who wife passes away. Um and he starts experiencing very, very spooky ooky and strange things after that happens. And he just does a lot of what people on the outside would probably consider quite unhinged, but the truth is he's just grieving. I don't fully know what this book is trying to say. And you might be asking, Rin, why is this in your top 20 then? You just have to understand. You just have to I am aware when something is really good, even if I don't feel like I'm smart enough to understand it. And I enjoyed reading this book, and I didn't want to put it down when I was reading it. I was like really, really wrapped into it, and I felt like I'm like, this is trying to say something. I just don't understand it yet. It was really, really sad. Because obviously it's dealing with grief, but I love a book about grief. I think if I'm being honest with you, if a book involves grief, even if I don't think it's great, I'm probably still going to like rate it quite high just because I like books about grief. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what that says about me, and I should probably see a therapist, but like, you know, here we are. So the next section is I Ain't Forget About You. These are the books that I did most definitely forget about. These are the books that when I was making my list, I said, "Oh, right. I forgot that I read that." Actually, I forgot that I read that, but I didn't forget that I loved it. Because once I read the title, I said, yes, yes. So the first book I have on this list is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. Witchcraft for Wayward Girls is about this young girl, technically a group of girls, but the main character is this young girl who's pregnant, and she gets sent to this like go away house, I guess. I don't really know how to fully explain it, but she gets sent to this place where it's filled with a bunch of other like pregnant girls. Like pregnant girls. There is a lot of I think it's the book I think is listed as horror. There's nothing really like horrific about it, at least in my opinion. I think the only thing that's horrific about it is pregnancy in and of itself. But I would tell you, I think pregnancy is horrific, like in real life. So that's like the most horrific, the most horrific aspect. There is, I guess, there's a lot of because it's a book about like pregnant girls. There is, I guess, the horrific thing about it is some of the scenes, like I think there's like two birthing scenes or three birthing scenes, and those are quite gruesome, but that's kind of like the worst of it, really. There's like some moments in it that make me cringe when they're like doing witchcraft, like the actual like physical feeling of like cringing because something is so uncomfortable to engage with. I really did enjoy this book though. Like as I was reading it, I was in it. I thought that the it was well written. There's like some dicey like magical Negro shit in it, but like whatever. Um what did I expect from a white man writing about pregnant teenage girls? And I also didn't necessarily like the little like black girl character as well. Like I felt like that was a little dicey too. But regardless, outside of that, I would say that this book is very well written and is a good time. A good time if you're okay with reading about pregnancy and birth. Let's talk about Beartown. Can I really tell you what Beartown is about? I don't really know what's a spoiler. So it's about this young girl that experiences this very like tragic event. You are watching the town kind of reckon with this event. I think that's the best way I can describe it without like giving anything away. So the book is essentially just like about how we treat women, how we treat young girls, what we're willing to believe when it comes to women and young girls, how easy it is for us to accept when a boy or a man is in a specific position, how willing we are to believe in him over believing in a girl or a woman. The book is written so well. It's so good. I think that Frederick Backman is really good at kind of just giving very sometimes they're like very like almost like monologue type of sections, but I think he's very good at giving like a line that just like, oh, that sums up that feeling so well. Like it sums up that concept, that feeling, that idea so well. And there's just so much of that in Beartown. And I really enjoyed it, even though it's like it's a heavy, like the book is heavy. It is written kind of like chaotically, if you will. Like it kind of switches from POV very rapidly and sometimes kind of like unexpectedly. There isn't like, here's a chapter and it's like this person's POV, here's a chapter and it's that person's POV. They kind of just all overlap, sometimes changing POVs within a chapter. And I know that that can be a little like, ugh, to like some people, but once you read for a bit, at least for me, once I started reading for like maybe 50 pages in, I was maybe 100, I'll even give it 100. I really got like my grasp on what was happening and like it being written in the way that it was, but it is a little difficult and confusing in the beginning. But I did really, really enjoy this book. Not as much as I feel like other people enjoy it, but I did really enjoy it. Here's where things get a little strange. Emily Henry's most recent book, Great Big Beautiful Life. Right, right. I like this more than I feel like the streets did. I like this more than the streets did. I go into, what is this book about? Emily Henry. This Emily Henry book is about these two writers who are essentially fighting to write the memoir biography of this like really famous woman. They end up having to write her entire book, like both of them writing the entire book, and then she at the end would decide who she wants to have officially like write the book. These two characters, we were, how do I explain what happens in this? So there's like a story within a story in this. So we're engaging with the woman that they're talking to, and a lot of the book is about her story. And then on the other side of it, we're seeing these two characters engage with each other because they kind of have to, because they're on this like small island and essentially competing for the same job. The thing is our main female character is kind of like doesn't really have her footing in the industry, but the guy that is that she's competing against is like very not famous, I guess. He's very well known and people really really like his work, and he's already written a very famous and like well received like memoir autobiography situation. I personally go into Emily Henry books kind of viewing them as like lit fic with a side of romance. So for me, this was fine. I was like, okay, most of this is like literary fiction. I was enjoying the story within a story. I was having a good time with it, and I thought that the romance was perfectly fine. Me now, like I was really going hard for that book. I don't know what that was about, but I would probably give it 4 stars. I still think it's really good. I think it's well written because Emily Henry, I think is a good writer. So I don't think she's gonna ever give you like slop. But I don't know if I feel like it was written to its full potential, but also I understand that she was trying something different and stepping out of her comfort zone of what she's written before. But also it feels like this was inevitable. Like she was always gonna go into more like chick lit, I guess, than really leaning into romance as much as you would assume that she would. But I never really fully viewed Emily Henry as a romance writer. So that's my take on that. The next book, and this is gonna get me killed, Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. Here's the reason why this is gonna get me killed. Because I definitely made a full, I think, hour-long video saying how Sally Rooney pissed me to fuck off. I'm gonna have the video somewhere and also linked in the description. Um, I'm pretty sure at some point have said that Sally Rooney has gaslit me with good writing. I think Sally Rooney is an incredible writer, and it actually pisses me off immensely because she cannot let go of the fact that she is obsessed with like age gap romance, and she's also obsessed with having every one of her characters having unprotected sex. And there is something that is like it really It really infuriates me something so fierce because it's like you don't have to make this decision. And every single time that her books go into that direction, I've read all of her books. Every single time her books go into that direction, I'm just like, what was the point of this? And the only reason why Intermezzo is up this high is because I feel like if I try to ignore everything that happens in one of these relationships, in both of these relationships, if I try to ignore all of like the weird, I have to bring it up. I have to fucking bring it up. Okay, so there is a character in this book that he is like freshly 21. He's a baby. He's freshly 21, I believe. And he is essentially dating this woman that's supposed to be like a caretaker, I guess. Caretaker might not necessarily be the right word, but she's supposed to be like helping him around like this city that he's in because he's a chess player, and she's supposed to be like being his sponsor, maybe is maybe the word. Either way, she's supposed to be like taking like looking after him, and she decides that she's gonna sleep with him instead. And the thing that haunts me every single time that I want to go and tell you that I think Intermezzo is a really good book, and I feel like it's such a good book that I recently bought a physical copy of it. Don't piss me off. I don't want to talk about it. Is the fact that there is a scene right before they have sex and they are making out, and he says, and I quote, "Sorry about my braces." And you want to know what? To get so pissed. You want to know what? I find that so infuriating to me because it is one thing for him to be 21, right? It's one thing for him to be 21 and her to be like 40, which like don't fucking piss me off. It is one thing for him to be 21 and her to be like 40. It is another thing for him to fucking have braces too. Because now I feel like it is giving infantilization. Because why would you do that? Why would you make that decision? You can't even make it framed as if like, okay, he's 21, but I'm supposed to be viewing him as like a fully functioning adult. I wouldn't be, but I'm supposed to be viewing him as a fully functional adult. Instead, you're like, oh yeah, he's 21, and let's not forget he also was kind of looking like he's freshly 18. And let's also not forget that she's been married before and she's at like the big age of 40. And she's old enough to be his mother. And I'm pretty sure she says that. We have to move on. We have to move on. Okay. At 25, we have The Vegetarian. The Vegetarian is about this woman who starts exhibiting quite strange behavior. She stops eating meat. She stops wearing a bra. She stops like acting like normal, if you will, in society, and everyone around her is like pissed off about her doing that. Her husband, abusive and weird, is like pissed off over the fact that she like can't be normal. Her family is like acting fucking strange too, and everyone's just acting like a fucking freak. And I read a comment or a review on someone talking about this book, and I can't sum it up any better than this person did. And I'm gonna like leave it somewhere. This I feel like really sums up why I think this book is so good. And I didn't fully have the words for it. And I've read this book twice. I think I might have read it like 2 or 3 years ago. What is time? I think I might have read it 2 or 3 years ago. And I was like, ooh, there's something about this book that I really, really like, but I can't fully put my finger on it. And I want to also let it be known that this book is quite like gruesome. And it's quite unnerving. And there's also an aspect of it that I remember reading another review of someone pointing out that they didn't like, and this is actually something that I personally really liked about it, is that the main character, the woman that's like experiencing all of these things that we're like hearing about, we never hear like her perspective. Like she actually rarely speaks in the book at all, and we only are really getting everyone else around her's like 2 cents. But there's something about her very obvious like lack of like bodily autonomy, and then just like autonomy overall, like the fact that she's going through all of these things and everyone has all these opinions of her, but she doesn't really get a say in anything. Like she just kind of exists, and everyone is just kind of spewing things onto her, but no one is really allowing her to like say how she's feeling. And every single time she does, it's just kind of like brushed to the side. And I just feel like there's a lot to discuss about like the misogyny of it all that's like involved in this book. But yeah, I think it's really good. It is hard to digest, no pun intended, but I do find that this is like a very interesting and good book. Next, we have White Knights. White Knights has a Sally Rooney problem too. White Knights, if you don't know, is about this man who has nothing to do because whatever time period this book was written in, and he ends up like falling for this girl that's way too fucking young for him to be falling for. Um, and he's just a little unserious. And I don't know if there's any other way for me to explain this, but like that's to me that is the premise of this book. I still think, although I kind of have a lot of beef with this book, that it's actually written quite well. Um, and I still enjoyed it. And like looking back on it, I'm like, oh no, I did actually kind of like it, even though I was ripping it to shreds at the time. And I want to say it might have been because I had did I read the Sally Rooney books before or after? I don't remember, but I I think maybe it was like the time that I read it or something that it was pissing me off. But I actually think it's well written. I think it's a good book. I think I was kind of just a little mean to the book. And I think that if you haven't read it, that you should. It's like it's quite low stakes. It's very short. So, and I think the prose are really good. So I think it's a good book, but the age gaps be killing me. The next book we have is The Summer Hikaru Died, but it's volume 5 instead of volume 6. And again, there's not much I can really tell you about this because but yeah, I just didn't like this one as much. But yeah, there's really like nothing else to say. They're all good. I just didn't think that this one was like as good as the sixth one. Next we have What Stalks the Deep. What Stalks the Deep is the third book in the Sworn Soldier series. I got it right this time. I'm not going to explain this well, actually. I think I'm fatiguing out. We're halfway there, and I've been talking for an hour, and I think it's getting to me. It's another one of Alex on their adventures, doing things that don't make no goddamn sense because it's a gothic horror book. So they're in like this underground type thing, and there's like these suspicious creatures, and I say suspicious loosely. There are these like creatures that are kind of like giving that they're made out of jello, and they're all Alex and crew are all kind of like triggered by these creatures because one of Alex's friends brother was like inspecting these mines, I guess, this underground situation, and they get caught up in the place and they go missing, and the friend goes to call Alex to help them figure out what's going on because word on the street is Alex be solving crime. Alex be all up in all of the weird like gothic shit, and they be solving crime. So that's what that book is about. I enjoy the series. I don't know. I have a really good time with this series. It's always a little gross because it's gothic horror. Um Always a little slow. Is slow the word? I guess kinda. There gothic horror, and I've said this before, there's not like a lot that goes on because it feels like it's more built on suspense than it's built on anything else. So it's quite slow. Um, but yeah, I had a good time with it. As I do with the series. And I'm gonna continue it even if there's like 20,000 books because they're short and they're fun and there's nothing else to it. I have a good time every time. The next book I have on the list is Heaven's Official Blessing. What volume am I on? 5. This one I really enjoyed. This was the last book that I read in 2025. Again, it's kind of hard to say what is happening in these books because again, it's a series and we kind of deep up into a series. But what I really liked about this one is we get a lot of the two main characters, or like the main character and the love interest. We get a lot more of them together in this book. Like they're essentially together the entire time. And I really, really enjoyed seeing them like interact. Because there's only in like all the other books, I feel like there's just like moments of them being together where they're not like together for the entire book. And they're trying to get out of this. Is it another arguably like a mine situation? They're trying to get out of this like underground situation. And them being stuck in there, they're stuck in there together. So they have their whole little like adventure together. and it's very cute, and there's some like intimate moments, and half of it for some reason the love interest is a child. I do know the reason, but I'm actually just not going to give it to you. And there is a photo of him, or like an illustration of him in the book, and he looks so cunt. He looks so cunt, and I'm just like, wow, yeah, yeah, yeah. There's nothing else to say, really. And the last book I have in this section is Catabasis. Um, this book is about these two grad students that decide to get their professor out of hell. And he deserved to be there too. He deserved to be there. But they go on a journey together to try to retrieve him out of hell. And it is just about their journey. And then they fall in love. I mean, they were technically in love before it, but they realize that they love each other like as they're down in hell. Sure. I had a good time with this. And sometimes I wonder if I love R.F. Wong's work this much. I read Babel or Babel, I read Yellowface, and now this. And Yellowface I thought was like perfectly okay. And then Babel Babel I thought was amazing. So, and I feel like this is like more than okay, but not amazing either. But I think the thing is like her writing is so good, and it almost feels similar. And I guess this is why like Emily Henry and her are both in the same category, because I feel like they're such good writers, but I don't know if I feel like they're writing the right stories. Maybe, I don't know. I thought it was good. There was a lot of moments in it that I enjoyed. There was never a time that I was like, "Ooh, I'm sick and tired of reading this." It was good. I would still like recommend it to people. I had a perfectly good time. So the next section is, after this, it goes to shit. After these next couple of books, it all goes to shit. So the first book I have on here is 1984. I won't explain to you what 1984 is, because everybody on the internet is talking about it right now, because we live in a fascist state. So, I actually really enjoyed this book. And to be honest with you, I probably could have put it higher up on the list than putting it at, what did I put it at? 31. I just felt like there was other books that I enjoyed more than I enjoyed this one. But I still do feel like, in the same way that a lot of people have been referencing it as of late, I fear that I'm like the rest of you. In this regard, I fear I'm like the rest of you, and I too will probably be quoting this book as well. The next book I have is Remarkably Bright Creatures. Remarkably Bright Creatures is about this older woman that works at an aquarium. We follow her through her life. through her time, I should really say through her time like working at this aquarium. And then we also follow the octopus that lives at the aquarium, that is dying. He's almost exceeded his lifespan. What else can I even say that won't feel like a spoiler? I guess that's it. So here's my take on this. This book feels very much like the type of book you would tell someone that doesn't tend to read, or doesn't read that many books. Like, maybe this is someone that might read, like, I don't know, like a book a month or a couple of books a year. And someone that's not reading like you and me, that is a lot more selective about the books that they read, because they're not reading that many. So they don't want to get like a dud. This is the type of book that you would go and tell that type of person that, oh, this is a really good book, I think you would like it. I don't think there's anything about this book necessarily that it would be something that someone wouldn't enjoy. It's very like heartwarming and heartfelt. It has just enough like sadness and tragedy for it to tug on your heartstrings, but like not enough for it to be depressing. It kind of wraps up very like neat and sweet. It hits all the beats. I will tell you, this book made me cry. I'm no different. I'm no different. But I will say that it's just like a perfectly good book. It's not doing anything revolutionary. It's just like, it's perfectly good. What I will say though, I did have to read this book on audio. And here is why. Because when I first started reading it, and I realized I was going to have to read from the perspective of an octopus. And to know me is to know these two things. or I guess one thing is to know me is to know this one thing. I do not like sea creatures. And you might be asking, so Rin, why did you pick up a book with a literal fucking octopus on the cover? And you just need to stop asking questions. So when I was started reading this book and I realized I was going to have to read with my own physical fucking eyes, the the octopus like inside thoughts, I got pissed off. And I said, well, I already paid for the book, so I'm going to fucking read it. But now I need to find some other way to read it. And I was like, oh, the only way I'm going to be okay with this is unless I put it on audio. But anyways, it's still a really good book, and I would recommend to somebody that doesn't read a lot. The next three spots are all of the Emily Wilde books. So I reread Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies. Is that what it's called? Because I was kind of like lukewarm on it the first time, but I kind of felt like I would like it better if I read it again. So I read it again, and I read the other two books, and I enjoyed it. I had a good time reading it. I kind of have to lump them all together because I don't really think one of them like is better than the other. I kind of would give all of them a solid like 3.75 really. I don't know what I actually rated it online, maybe 4 stars, but I would kind of give all of them just like a solid 3.75. I think they're perfectly good books. They're written well. I think that the characters are fun. I think the story is fun. I did get a little emotional towards the last one. I did get a little emotional, I won't lie. But yeah, I thought it was perfectly good. I think if you are into fae stories, which like maybe I am, who knows? Maybe I am. I think if you're already into that, you would like Emily Wilde. And then after that, I have the Summer Hikaru Died, the light novel. Again, this probably could be higher, but I didn't really know where to put it because I've already read the manga, like the first volume of the manga, and then I've also watched the first season of the anime. So I literally am just like reading this or engaging with this information for like the third time. So I didn't know where else to put it. I again, this the Summer Hikaru Die is always all up and down my fucking list of books and media I've consumed. Um, so I don't really have anything to say. I feel like I'm always talking about this, and y'all are probably fucking annoyed. Next, I have this is embarrassing. Another Sally Rooney. I have Normal People. Normal People is a good book. Normal People actually is a really good book. It's quite sad. It's quite devastating. There's like how do I explain this? Sally Rooney is so good at writing like dialogue and really having quite like human sounding characters. Like her characters don't sound like characters. Like I believe these are people. She's very good at being able to do that. And Normal People was just like the whole way through reading it was just depression. Like there's just like this sadness that kind of looms over the whole book. And again, this is another book that I don't know if I liked how it ended. And that honestly is probably one of the reasons why it's not a little bit higher, is just because I'm not too sure how I feel about like the messaging. And that's kind of always, I guess, my issue with Sally Rooney is just like I feel like her messaging gets a little lost because she be in like a world that she shouldn't be in. And it's just like, girl, please. But again, like if I'm gonna actually tell you a Sally Rooney book to like read for real, I would tell you to read Normal People. Normal People is actually like legitimately a good book, and I think that you should read it. Next, a book that I kind of don't know what to fully say. I have mixed feelings about this, and that is 2666. This book is about these series of like murders that were happening. I think it's like it's based, I believe, on like actual like murders. Like there was just a tremendous amount of women and girls that were just getting murdered, and no one could figure out who was committing these murders. And this book kind of is broken up, I want to say, into like 4 or 5 sections. The murders are just kind of like interwoven into all of these different stories that are being told. And there's just like one section of this book that for like page after page after page, it is just talking about all of these like not necessarily like really intense detail, but it's giving detail or account, if you will, of all of these different women and girls that were murdered and like how they were murdered. And it's just a lot. It's really just a lot. And I have it this high up because I feel like I don't even know if I can say it's a good book, but I can't say it's a bad book either. I just kind of didn't know where to put it, and I was almost tempted to like just put it in books that I didn't rate at all, that I kind of didn't even want to put on the list at all. But also I kind of felt like it should be because I think it's an important book, even though it's like really, really hard to read. And it's also like almost 1,000 pages. Like it's so much. It's so heavy. It's so dense, figuratively and literally. There's not even like much else I can say about it. It's just a lot. Next, I have Apples Never Fall. This is a thriller, and I think this is like my only like straight up thriller on this list because I don't really read thrillers anymore. I don't know how much I remember of this book. I just remember it was about a family that played tennis. And there's like some thrillery things that happen because there's a girly pop that ends up entering in their lives and she's strange. And that's all that I really remember. And I also kind of don't think that you need to know anymore because it's a thriller. This book is good. Like I think it's a good thriller. I'm just not really in a place of just reading like straight up thrillers. Like if I'm gonna read a thriller, I kind of want it to be a thriller and something else, and not even necessarily a thriller first, be like the something else and then a thriller. So reading this, I was just like, kind of lukewarm on it. And that's the reason why it's so low on the list. If you like thrillers, however, I do think that you would enjoy this. It is a really good thriller. I just like don't. I'm just not. I don't really read thrillers anymore, so it just kind of was like, okay. The next book I have is a manga that I don't know how to pronounce. It will be on the screen so you can see it. I'm pretty sure what I said about this book, I think I have said this somewhere on the internet already, if not just a Goodreads review. But the art style in this book is so good. Like I think the manga art style is so nice, but I just found the story to be kind of boring. All I remember, the things I remember about this book are that there is these two characters that are supposed to do like they like fight these like monsters, and throughout the book you just get them like fighting a monster, fighting a monster, fighting a monster, fighting a monster. And I said, oh, I'm sure this book probably does something more with the plot than just this, but I kind of just don't care. Like I'm not invested enough right now to care about what it might do. That's it. I think the art style is nice. If you care, if that's something that interests you, then maybe you would have the desire to like continue, but like I don't care. That's it for all of the books that I found to be great, good, and decent. And now we are going into the rest of the books that I read. So this is 41 to 53, and then I got a few that I didn't rate that I'll tell you about later. This next section is called Look Me in My Face and Be For Real. Because every book in this, you must look me in my face and be for real, because these books are not good. These books are not good. And obviously they get progressively worse, but these books are not good. So the first book we have on here is Sally Rooney comes right back at us again, and that's Beautiful World, Where Are You? So now here is where I'm boo-boo the motherfucking fool. Because as I have mentioned before, I did an entire hour-long video reading all of Sally Rooney's books and like talking about every single one of them at length. Now, I have read Beautiful World, Where Are You years ago. I read it because Jack Edwards had gaslit me into believing that this was a book I needed to read. So I read that book. I bought a physical hard copy of that book and ended up giving it away at the end of the year because I said, oh, this is unserious. Beautiful World, Where Are You is a book about these two women who are friends, and they are going back and forth through email, just giving updates on their lives and like all of their philosophies and whatnot. And what's happening on the side of this is both of them are in relationships that are weird and fucking disgusting. One of them, because the age gap is questionable, and it literally in one part of the book, I believe this is the book that it said that's it's set in one part of the book, the character, the older male character, because it's always an old ass man, the one of the girls, right, their sister is talking about how weird she thinks her sister's relationship is with this man, and how he was an adult when they were teenagers, and she always knew he had a crush on her, and she was like, oh, I bet you he had a crush on you even when you were a kid. Huh? So I said, oh, so Miss Rooney, you're fully aware that this shit is fucking weird. And to even hammer it further home is later in the book, he goes and mentions how he thought that she was like also a really cute baby. And he's like, oh, I even had great taste in babies. Enough. 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 I'm sick and fucking tired. And the thing that really pisses me off the most is that the book yet again is written so well, and it actually has a lot of really intelligent things to say, but it's so clouded by the fact that why the fuck was this man talking about being interested in a baby? So it's like, look me in my face and be so fucking for real, because what do you mean? All right, anyways, the next book we have, again, Sally Rooney, Conversations with Friends. Conversation with Friends pissed me off too, because what do you mean? Conversation with Friends is about these two women that at one point had a thing, and they end up getting invited to this woman's house, and one of the girly pops ends up falling for this woman's husband, and she ended up fucking this woman's husband. And I'm just like, this is dumb. This is dumb. And again, she's like 21, because they're always fucking 21, and he's like 39. And it's just like, why is this happening? And I'm just like watching this woman just make bad decisions. And why is she making bad decisions? Because she's 21. Because she's 21, and 21-year-olds make stupid fucking decisions. But we're the adults in the room that's going to actually take care of it is a fuck ass man. The adult in the room is a fuck ass man. Enough. Enough. Sick and tired. Okay, the next book is The Love Simulation. And here's where I almost exclusively probably have romance on here. The Love Simulation. The Love Simulation, I actually had thought more highly of after I read it, and now looking back on it, I'm just like, maybe not. The Love Simulation is about this woman who, does she just decide she wants to do something else with her life? The details don't matter. The thing that you need to understand is she gets in this group with these other teachers. She's a teacher. She gets in this group with these other teachers. One of them is the love interest, and they end up going into this like simulation, and they're supposed to all survive this space simulation so they can like win money, and they want this money to do something for like the school, I think. The thing is, the rules don't make any fucking sense, because if it's not like all of these people need to survive this simulation in order for them to get all the money. Only one person needs to survive the simulation. So it's just like, what does it matter? The thing that makes no fucking sense is that like the way everyone ends up getting kicked out of the simulation, except for our main character. Sorry, that's a spoiler. The everyone ends up getting like kicked out of the simulation except for her. And it's just like, for what? For what? And just like all the decisions that she makes just like don't make any fucking sense to me. And the romance I thought was like lackluster. Everything is a little weird. I just anyways, the next one is Love in a Winter Wonderland. This again was a book that I liked more in the moment, and I purely think it was because I was reading all of these big ass heavy intense books, and then I was like, oh, thank God, something light and like fuzzy that I don't have to think about. The issue was I wasn't thinking. So this book is about this young girl and this boy, because it's a YA romance. She needs to get a job for reasons. And this boy works at, like, his parents own a bookshop. And she decides that she's gonna go and try to get a job at this bookshop. And she ends up like getting a job at this bookshop. She ends up like with this boy, right? The thing is this boy has a girlfriend. This boy has a girlfriend, but somehow they end up together, which is just like, okay. And then also on top of that, this girl also has like internalized fat phobia, and we just don't address it. We just don't address it. And that's weird, especially for a YA book. I feel like you can, and I don't think you should get away with this, but you can kind of get away with this when it comes to like adult books, because you would hope that adults would be able to like navigate that a little bit better. But like children shouldn't have to navigate internalized fat phobia that isn't acknowledged in any way. They shouldn't have to. Like that's weird. That's like a weird thing to put in a kid's book. But yeah, it's just like the book was quite mid and and just a little or a lot questionable. So there's that. The next book is Pardon My Frenchie, because again, another romance book. This is a book about this woman that owns this like doggy daycare, and she got this really like famous dog. Okay. So she has this really like famous dog that she always like posting up on like Instagram or TikTok or whatever social media platform. She ends up meeting this like, I think he's like ex-military or something, which ooh child, don't piss me off with no military propaganda. But he's like ex-military, and he's really like supposed to be grumpy. And I'm pretty sure they're supposed to like hate each other in the beginning, and it's just like for nothing. Like he's just being mean and weird, but like whatever. So he's supposed to be taking care of like the dog. The dog he's supposed to be taking care of is the little like boyfriend, if you will, of this woman's dog. And he's supposed to be taking care of this dog because it's his like grandmother, I think, like her dog. But she isn't able to like take care of the dog anymore, so he's like now taking in charge of the dog, but he doesn't like dogs, so it's just like it's real unserious for this man to be taking care of this dog. It's a whole lot of nothingness. I didn't enjoy it. um Mainly because like as a dog person, I felt like it was unserious, and I felt like I'm like, if I saw like dog people behaving like this, I would think they were fucking annoying. Like I would literally think they were fucking annoying. And I know there's a lot of people that like dog content, and maybe reading a book about like some social media dog, you would get like a kick out of it and think it was fun and cute, but I thought it was whack and boring. Also, their relationship I thought was just like lackluster too. I was like, this feels like nothingness, and it literally is giving that the dogs have more chemistry than them. So enough is enough. The next book I have on the list is Ariadne. And the reason why Ariadne is on this list, and I'm not actually going to explain this Greek mythology to you because I don't care. I have tried to convince myself that I would be into Greek mythology, and it's not true. It is not true, and I have nothing to show for it. And I think I've read maybe one or two other like Greek mythology books, and I thought they were both boring and bad. I thought they were all boring and bad. Yes, I read Circe and maybe something else, maybe not. And I'm just like, I don't care. I don't care. There's nothing about this that I find interesting. And it's always just like, it feels it feels very like misogynistic, but also like girl bossy, which I guess is the same thing. And I just like don't, I'm not invested in it. I wasn't invested in the story as I was reading. I was like, this just feels like it's chugging along for no reason. I hate to have to watch a woman have 11 kids with a man I don't like. It's just like, I'm tired. I'm sick and I'm fucking tired. The next book, and this is quite tragic, because she also made it quite low on my list 2 years ago, I guess 2 years ago now, and that is Hot Wax. So Hot Wax is a story about this young girl. Well, it's dual timeline. So she is a child in some of the in one of the timelines, and then she's an adult in the other timeline. And she is like running away from her husband, and we're getting her running away from her husband alongside with the story of her childhood being on the road with her dad and his band, who were like very, very famous. And we're like taken through the story of her childhood and then also her like adulthood. Maybe as a musician, this is the reason why I found this book to be unserious. But I just like, I'm like, no. No, I don't like this. I'm not enjoying this at all, actually. I didn't like the music aspect of it. I thought that was uninteresting. And then I also didn't like the like traveling aspect of it. And just like all of it as a whole, I was just like, this feels like a bunch of nothingness. Like I don't get it. I also felt like her decisions like as an adult were very strange. And This is another book where I'm like, oh, we could have done so much better if you would just get therapy. If I can look at a book and be like, if you just got therapy, this book doesn't have to exist. Maybe your book shouldn't exist. And maybe we should just decide that. So next we have Between Friends and Lovers. This book is bad as well, but of course we're in that section. This book is about this Black woman that is best friends with a white man, but ends up having a crush on this Black man. She is just giving weirdo. She's giving weirdo. I don't really respect anyone. To quote Kenya, as told by Kenya, low racial self-esteem. Like, I don't really respect nobody with low racial self-esteem. It's just a little too much. And that's what this was giving. That's very much what this was giving. Because this is a woman that is literally doing a lot of like strange shit just to be in the good graces of a white man. And it couldn't be me. It couldn't be me. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. And I'm just like, girl, at what cost? I was like, this man's whole like family, stay looking at her weird. Stay looking at, like, doing like very strange things. Like, I'm pretty sure they had like, she had a room in his house. And it's just like, why? And then I think she's at like the big age of like 24, big enough, a big enough age. And it's just like, girl, this is what you're doing? This is what you're doing? You're spending wasting all of your time, your effort, and your energy on this white man who literally wanted so desperately to not be associated with you that when people thought y'all were dating, he rejected it immediately. So I'm like, okay, so not only do you have low racial self-esteem, but the man that you're in love with is racist? I'm good. I'm good off that. The next book I have is Can't Get Enough. Now, this book probably isn't even necessarily as bad as like some of these other books on the list, but the reason why this book is getting is getting some thumbs down for me is because the other two books in this like a trilogy, if you will, are the other two like companion books, are so much better than this, and it finds me confused as to why this one sucks so fucking bad. So this is the third book in what I don't know what's the name of this little like trilogy situation. But this is the Kennedy Ryan book. There's what Before I Let Go, and the other one that I could tell you I'm not going to. I could tell you I'm literally not going to. This one is following Hendrix, who ends up falling for this billionaire. And now I don't like rich people. So I'm already like, I'm not, this was never going to be for me. Like, we actually have to be so for real. We already starting off horribly wrong. So she's trying to be with this man, but on the other side of this, she is, and this is like the only thing that's like, I guess, really interesting and like truly well written about the story, is she's also dealing with her mother having dementia, Alzheimer's, one of them. She's like also like reckoning with that, and her mother's sister or her aunt has been like helping her take care of her mother, has been taking care of her mother. Her aunt is older, so like she can't really be like responsible for her sister for the long term, because like she doesn't have much like energy and like ability to do this anyway. So it's kind of like left to Hendrix, her daughter, to take care of her. So the thing is like Hendrix is supposed to be like Miss Independent, and somehow she ends up taking care of her mother. This like billionaire that she ends up like getting into a relationship with has a daughter, given an adult daughter, but like in her teens, like she's 18, so like still a child, but like grown enough, right? But she ends up with this man, and then ends up essentially being like a stepmother, and then also they get a dog. So it's just like, this is supposed to be a woman that is supposed to be Miss Independent, like not really need nobody for real, or not want to like be taking care of anybody, and wants to be able to just be there for herself. And somehow by the end of the book, she ends up not being able to do that. And I'm just like, what was the point? What was the point? She already has her own money. She doesn't even need to be dating with this fuck ass billionaire. So it's like, she doesn't have to be doing any of this. She actively doesn't have to be doing any of this. And somehow she ends up in the midst of all of this. And it's just like, for what? For what? Why was any of those the choices? Pissed me off and annoyed me. The next book that I almost forgot about, and this gets in, gets put into the 50th spot is the dating countdown. Now, what the fuck is the dating countdown even about? I don't even remember. Oh, wait. No, I do. This was the lesbians. I remember now. Okay, so the dating countdown is about these two women that they have feelings for each other. I don't remember how they end up like actually deciding this, but they it's very like will they won't they, like one of the main girls like isn't out, the other one is. So the one that isn't out is like, very back and forth about whether she wants to be with this woman or she doesn't want to be with this woman, like how willing she is to come to terms with her sexuality, whatever. The issue that I take with this book, because if that was it, we would be like, yeah, that's probably a good book. The issue I take with this book is the fact that these are two women that are claiming that they don't know if they are, at least the one that's in the closet is claiming that she doesn't want to be in a relationship with this woman and that she doesn't want to take this any further. But they fuck like 3 times within the beginning of the book. Like 3 times within the beginning of the book. They are practically together the entire time. And everyone, and they're not even being like discreet about it. Like it's they're on the same like island together. They're essentially on the same vacation together. And everyone can literally see that they got a thing going on. And what they end up doing is being like, oh, we're gonna go on like all these dates. The one that's out of the closet is like, oh, we're gonna go on all these dates so I can kind of like show you that like we can make this work. And then they don't even finish going on all the dates. And like it felt almost as if the author didn't even give a shit about their own plot or about the premise of their own book. Like they just abandoned it. I'm like, okay, so what are we rooting for? What do we care? Why would I care? I don't. The next book, again, they all romance hope. The next book is Frequent Flyers. Frequent Flyers is about this woman who is just that, a frequent flyer. And she goes between the US and the UK. And she meets this man on one of the flights that's from the UK that also goes from the UK to the US. And he's like grumpy and mean and rude from like the jump. And she ends up like interacting with him. And they like hit it off for a bit. And then he panics over the fact that he's like hitting it off with her. And he decides that he's gonna like dip. He goes to the bathroom, he puts on his wedding ring and then comes back out. And she's just like, and it's just like rightfully so, because what the fuck? Like y'all were just flirting and hitting it off and now he decides to do that. And it's just like, okay, weirdo. Anyways, the thing that actually is the most weird about this is that he used to be married and then his wife passed away. And his wife had a daughter that was not his daughter, but he was raising her like as his own like flesh and blood. But this daughter has a white father that like doesn't like he's not taking care of her like at all. And so they have this like custody situation going on where this white father that hasn't raised the child at all is trying to like gain custody of her. And it's like a whole thing. Yeah, I just found that like this whole book was unserious. Like I found him to be unserious with the whole like custody battle. I found the woman to be unserious because she was also like in love with her best friend who ends up getting engaged to her cousin, I think. And she's really weird about that the whole time. And I'm just like, ooh, all this is awkward. And she was just giving very like desperate. And I'm like, ooh, I've had enough. The desperation was disgusting and annoying to me. And I just felt like the way that she interacted with all her family was annoying. I felt like her family was annoying. Like everything was bad. And I'm just like, ooh, you got mommy issues and you need to seek help. The next book we have is The Art of Scandal. And ooh, this one pissed me off real bad. So The Art of Scandal is about this woman who again has a white husband. Ooh, child. Ooh, child. She catches her white husband cheating. She's just like, ooh, we can't be together no more. We can't be together no more. But she is a wife with no job, right? She is a housewife. She ain't got no job. So she over here being like, oh, he bring home the bacon, but like, I want the house. And it's just like, girl, you can't afford the house. So What you finna do? But she's like, oh, I want the house. Like, this is my house. I poured everything into this house. And she's like, girl, okay. So she ends up like saying all that, but she's at his birthday party, or she's literally throwing him a birthday party when she realizes that he's cheating, or like fully like, maybe she didn't realize, but she was like, oh, I have to like acknowledge the fact that he's cheating. Like, it just is what it is. And so she goes and runs off, and she ends up like meeting this young guy, because she's again probably like 40 or something, like in her late 30s, early 40s, and he's like in his early 20s, and she ends up like interacting with him, and then like ends up falling for him, and he ends up falling for her. The thing about this book, again, and this goes into like this again, the Sally Rooney of it all, she is instead of being like, okay, this is a relationship between two consenting adults, and although there's an age gap, it just is. Like, it's not that serious. We don't have to like harp on it. We don't really have to think about the fact that there's an age gap. Like, it just is an age gap, but their relationship works and it makes sense, and you should root for them as the reader. But no, they can't stop bringing up the fact that she's a cougar. And I'm like, you see, now you lost me. Because I would have been able to let this rock if everyone just acted like this was okay. I disagree. I wouldn't at the big age of 29 be caught dead with a 21-year-old. You couldn't pay me. You literally couldn't pay me to do it. But if that's your tea, that's your tea. Who am I to stop you? Who am I to stop you? But the fact that they wouldn't allow me to sit with the story and to engage with their relationship without it having to be like, oh my God, he's so young. Oh my God, he's so young. Oh my God, is it weird that I'm this age and he's so young? And it's just like, yeah, now it is weird because you won't stop bringing it up. So now I guess I should think it's weird too. Pissing me off. And the last book that I have on this list of the actual books that I rated, and that is Second Tide's the Charm. Second Tide's the Charm is horrible. Like, it's actually so bad. So this book is about this woman who I want to say is like a marine biologist. She deals with sea life, which again, this should have what did I say earlier? This should have been a sign that I wasn't gonna like it, because why the fuck would I want to read a book about sea life? She is like a marine biologist of sorts, but she is kind of like at a crossroads with what she wants to do with her life. She could go back to grad school and like finish her degree and like really lock into all of her like sea life shit, but instead she's over here working for her friends, like whatever type of job that still involves the sea. She's like working for her friend, but she can't stop acting a fucking fool every single time she's at the job, so she gets fired. And she ends up getting in contact with her ex's sister, I think, or like some relationship with her ex. Their reason for not, or I should tell you about the ex first. So he is a social media star, right? Already lost me. Already fucking lost me. He's a social media star. He's getting like millions of views allegedly. And it's all because he be on a boat wrestling fish. And it's just like, okay, I guess. She ends up working like with him. And their reasoning for breaking up makes no sense to me. And the pacing of the book also makes no sense to me. And somehow it's boring and nothing happens. And it's just bad. Like, there's just nothing good about it. Their chemistry isn't good. The writing isn't good. The pacing isn't good. The storyline isn't good. The characters are bad. Like, there's nothing even to hold on to with this book. And it feels almost like, I don't want to call it AI slop, because it probably isn't, but it kind of is giving like no human played a part in this. Like, it feels so like soulless and like nonsensical. Just feels like nothingness. And that is my list of books. Now let's talk about the handful of books that I did not rate and why I didn't rate them. So the 54th, 55th, and 56th books that I read, one of them is A Trans Man Walks Into a Gay Bar. It's a memoir, and I just didn't, unlike, I know I did technically rate a memoir like earlier in this video, but I didn't technically give it an actual star rating. It's just, I thought the book was so good, I just needed to include it. And not saying that I don't think that this book was good, but it didn't really feel like it made sense to fit anywhere on my list, so I just decided to leave it off. The next book that I put on here is The Wild Robot, which is just a children's book, and that's the reason why it felt silly to put it on this list, because I'm grown. So there is no point in me putting it on there. And the last book is Blood in the Water, which is again children's book, middle grade to be specific. Very, very good book, but it's a children's book. So it's like it felt silly to put it on this list. And that is everything. That is all 56 books that I read in 2025. Um, how do I feel after reading all of those books? There was a lot of good books. There's a lot of books that I still think about to this day. Arguably, like I said, like the top 20 of my books I thought were very, very good. And then even the stuff that was middle of the way, I thought were like decent. Like they're not bad books. I would still recommend them. But unfortunately, we had a lot of really, really good books and a lot of really, really shitty books. And of course, the majority of the shitty books were romance. And this is the reason why I don't tend to willingly read romance. And I think that's it. That's all I have for you. I've been filming for probably 2 hours. So anywho, follow me on Goodreads, on Storygraph, on Fable, because I'm on Fable now. What else should you do? You should like this video. You should comment, leave me a comment on what were your favorite books of the year and what were your least favorite books of the year, because I'm actually really curious. I'm pretty sure I did get a recommendation from one of you from my like last video like this. I'm pretty sure I did get a rec from one of you guys, and I'm pretty sure that it was quite good. I don't fully remember, but I'm pretty sure I did read that book. Oh, you can also follow me on Apple Music. More on that later. More on that in a different video. That's it for me. Stop watching. Bye.